Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video, I think, is going to be an interesting discussion for you all. I wanted to talk about the difference between therapeutic and recreational use and kind of where the line is between the two and kind of unpack this a bit. This is one of those questions that I see come up a lot on various forums, and there's always kind of a heated flame war and a spicy discussion around it. And I think there's a lot to say, and I have some unique perspectives on it, so I thought I would share those with you and we could talk about it and I could help you maybe orient or clarify for yourself where that line is and what that means for you. So let's go ahead and talk a bit about recreational versus therapeutic psychedelic use. And for anybody who might be new to the channel, I just want to say a quick warm welcome to you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you get a lot out of this. I want to introduce myself really quick. My name is Dave. I'm a coach. I'm a hypnotherapist. And I work with people around this area of psychedelics and self-healing, self-actualization, spiritual growth, that kind of thing. I have a long history of psychedelic use myself, a lot of experience with it. And I've studied a lot around this. So I kind of bring all these tools together to really support and serve people. And on this channel, not only do we talk about those topics, but we talk about things like personal development psychedelics, spiritual awakening and psychedelics, and just beyond psychedelics, just in general, these kind of bigger, deeper questions about life. So if you're interested in any of that kind of stuff, you are certainly in the right place. So with that being said, grab a water, grab a drink or a coffee, a little bit of popcorn, whatever it is that you need, settle in, and let's talk about therapeutic versus recreational use, because I think you're going to like it. Okay, so I'll just say off the bat here, one of the awesome things about being a coach versus, say, being, a clinical therapist or a hardcore scientist or, some of the other kind of roles that pop up around this emerging field of, using psychedelics for personal healing, personal growth, is that I can say things because I'm not necessarily licensed or being watched, rigorously by, a university board or something like that. I can say things that other scientists and other thinkers in the field may think and may feel, but may not feel like it's kind of their place to say or that it's valid to say. And this is one of those topics where I feel like personally, when it comes to recreational versus therapeutic use, I have maybe what might be a slightly controversial opinion, but I feel like it's the truth. So I just kind of want to lay that out up front about this. So what is the messy truth about, psychedelics when it comes to therapeutic versus recreational use? Well, the messy truth, whether or not you like to hear this or whether or not it matches your map and model of psychedelics or of life really, is that when it comes to recreational and therapeutic use, what I've seen with myself and with the hundreds of people that I've met in my life, I know a large community of psychedelic users, that line is very blurry. That's the messy truth here. It's actually very hard to distinguish and draw a clean, clear line between what is therapeutic and what is recreational. And I think part of that just goes into the heart of and the kind of neuromechanics, the brain chemistry, what we know about how psychedelics impact the brain. I think it's just part and parcel of how psychedelics affect us that line is blurry. So let me explain a little bit what I mean here. First of all, what you'll notice if you take psychedelics for a while and you take them for, say, therapeutic intent. So for me, I started off personally, like most people do, especially back in the day when I started taking them, in the 90s, taking them for recreational use. I took them for fun, for, self-exploration, for mind expansion, for the kind of romantic, mysterious weirdness of it all, right? And I'd say a lot of people kind of get in with that intent first, or at least traditionally that was the case. Things are changing now. But people get in and you take it to have fun. And along the way, while you're having fun, you're also having epiphanies. You're having realizations. You're putting together different parts of your life that you had not considered in new ways. You're remembering old things that were meaningful to you that you had totally forgotten. You are, touching into some sort of new, profound, maybe a mystical experience or an ego death experience if you kind of, push it too far, or, you have these moments or just a self-healing experience where maybe your sense of fear or anxiety or discomfort or whatever fell away for a moment. You're like, whoa, I feel great. I feel powerful. I feel peaceful. I feel whatever, right? So we have these moments of what are essentially therapeutic experiences that tend to arise from kind of recreational experience. And the other is also true. So along the way, as I would take psychedelics, as I got deeper and deeper into it, and simultaneously got deeper and deeper into my own spiritual growth and my own spiritual journey, because the psychedelics for me really awakened a perception and an understanding of life at the level of spirituality and what that is and what that meant for me. And it just awakened, quite frankly, a passion for spirituality that kind of I pursued. That kind of the two paths kind of were interlinked, but very much parallel. So I started to use them for therapeutic use on my own, to self heal, to explore my spiritual side, to go deeper into this kind of healing aspect of psychedelics. Less of the novelty, less of the playfulness and silliness and the weirdness, more of the profundity, right? And so I would set these intentions to, let go of stress, let go of whatever my hangups were, that kind of a thing, and take a macrodose and sit and pray for hours. And a lot of times, and this is very common, I know a lot of friends who use psychedelics kind of in this way, and this is a very common thing. What will happen is you take the psychedelic with this intent to have a profound experience, to reconnect to the source of all life and feel kind of rejuvenated and replenished and inspired and clearer, and maybe do some shadow work and really get into whatever your issues are. And then you come on a psychedelic, and the message that comes through for you from your unconscious mind or from your higher mind or your higher self, however you want to think of it, is something like lighten up, relax, it's no big deal, you need to play more, you need to have more fun, you need to go, use your body more, you need to do more yoga, you need to get out in nature more, you need to have more sex, you need to socialize, you need to tell dumb jokes and be silly with people. A lot of times that's the message, right? Which is essentially what? That's a message, it's a therapeutic message to be recreational, right? I know for myself, this is a mild digression, but I really do think it, the more I think about it, it really applies here. When I was younger, I had a lot of hangups with my body image, appearance, how masculine or feminine I presented, and comfort with setting myself free. I was kind of very repressed, very kind of hemmed in, very kind of self-limiting, out of a lot of fear of how people, thought about me, judgment, fear, shame around just allowing myself the freedom to explore myself. And one of the ways that really manifested was a fear of dancing, which, is less of a stigma now. But again, back in the 90s, at that time, it was not necessarily seen as cool for a guy to dance, right? For a guy to move his body and just, at least that was my impression. That was my issue. That's how I conceptualized it, right? I'll just own that as mine. So anyways, I went to a concert and got very high on some very good LSD, and had a moment. The music was just so relentlessly funky and groovy and on. And I was so high, I had so much energy in my body, I couldn't hold it in. I couldn't not move. I had to just get over the hang up and let go, because I was like kind of bursting at the seams with this desire to dance and move, right? So that was a transmission from whatever you want to call it, your higher self, my higher self, or, inner wisdom, however you want to think of it. It was a transmission just to move. That was all that it said. But in that, it's like a dam broke open. And like all of that hang up and all of that fear and all of that insecurity about how I looked and if I moved right and if I was cool or not and all that kind of shit just broke open and just released out of me. And I just let it all go. I stopped caring and I just moved. And what emerged as I moved was this absolutely ecstatic experience, just pure joy, pure happiness, pure gratitude and fulfillment and self-alignment, and just this like healthy emotional experience emerged out of that moment, right? So I was in a recreational setting. I was at a concert. I, took psychedelics for a recreational intent, which was just to enjoy the music. And the message that came through was recreational. Hey, dude, relax, let go, and dance, have fun, right? But yet the impact that that had on me was profoundly therapeutic, right? It was profoundly healing. And that was a moment where I changed as a human being and my life changed. Totally connected me to my body more, connected me to my physicality, connected me to my self-confidence in, the view of others around me. It was a huge breakthrough moment for me. Likewise, um, I've had plenty of experiences. I know I'm reiterating myself here, but I've had conversations with people, endlessly about how ironic it is that how often you intend to have a therapeutic experience at home. You load up on the psychedelic, you come up on it, and it tells you to relax and let go, but also the opposite, So the line is very blurry. And there's a reason for this. And the reason is that the ways psychedelics impact the brain. I know I've said this before, but this is something to really kind of grok, really deeply absorb and wrap our heads around. The way psychedelics work in the brain is that we have various regions in the brain that have various functions. And when we're not on a psychedelic, typically these regions only crosstalk so much. So some regions will crosstalk a lot, others won't at all. When we take a psychedelic, we get much more cross connectivity amongst all the regions of the brain. So there's kind of a certain amount of chaos that's happening in the brain. It's firing in all kinds of new patterns and directions and combining regions and areas and different modes of operating in new and different ways. And that's why we get all these kind of new states and perceptions and thoughts and feelings and experiences that come out of a psychedelic experience, which I love. And I think that is the value of psychedelics. Like, that's not all of it, but that's a huge chunk of it, or that's one way of understanding the value of psychedelics. But because of that, it becomes really hard to cleanly delineate therapeutic or recreational use, because when you're recreational, your brain is still in this kind of chaotic cross-firing mode, and it may pull up something of therapeutic importance, whether that's a resource state, some breakthrough like I had, or some piece, some material from your psyche that needs healing, which often happens, right? Also, the other way around though, when you are in a therapeutic kind of scenario, because of that same chaotic stuff, the messaging that may come through may be much more recreational. It might be, dude, it's time to laugh more. Dude, it's time to, I want to travel. I want to see the world, whatever the meaningful thing is, right? And so it's really hard to separate these out. And I think that that's an important message to get across just out to the world, that recreation can be therapeutic, straight up. Recreation is healing. When you go and you exercise, technically that's recreational, but that's also one of the healthiest things you can do for yourself, for your brain, for your emotions, for your body, obviously, right? If you go on a hike, again, that's recreational. But what we know now about, the way forests impact our physiology, and seeing more green and breathing the fresh air and the ion exchange and all of that, again, very therapeutic for you. I think we can, see this more and more across the board, that recreational things also have a therapeutic component. So it's really hard to kind of draw these clean lines. So for me, I feel like this is an important thing, because what you see a lot online, is people who are kind of hardline one way or the other, right? And again, as a coach, I can say this because I'm not, a scientist working on psychedelic therapy or psychedelic studies in a lab that has funding where I have to be political about what I say, right? I'm also not just some like willy-nilly kook who's just, whoa, just fucking take it, bro. Like, I know those guys. I've been there. I've been in all the situations where those kinds of characters exist. And, for me, and for a lot of people I know, psychedelics are profound and life-changing. And so, so I sit in the middle is my point here. And I think it's just really important to be just frank, to be honest and truthful about that it's a blurry line. And I think that just goes right to the heart of how psychedelics impact the brain. I don't think we're ever going to be able to separate that out. You can, go into a therapeutic session and end up just getting the giggles. And maybe that's how you emotionally release. And you're just feeling silly and what's arising out of you is just all this repressed joy, and you end up, laughing in tears about the weirdest, funniest thoughts popping through your head. Who says that's invalid? How can you say that's not healing, right? And vice versa. Like, sometimes you go into a recreational experience, and that recreation is also a form of healing, and some shadow piece comes up, and maybe that teaches you about life. Maybe that teaches you about yourself, or about other people around you and human nature. Maybe that teaches you about, what's important to you, or how to navigate a situation successfully. I've had some, I've been high, in situations where other people weren't, and had some very profound life lessons just because my mind was more open. So it's complex, and I don't think there's an easy answer to this. And I think really the bigger picture here is that we need to start to just make recreational use also valid, because I think it is. And again, I don't think you can really separate recreational from therapeutic that cleanly. You can, of course, get people to focus on a therapeutic thing in a therapeutic setting, and that's useful and important. But you can't just totally pull the two apart. They're intertwined on a lot of different levels, and I think that's important to acknowledge. Part of my reason for doing Mind Keys here is that I want to teach people how to work this path, how to weave your healing through all this. Because again, the way I work, the way I think about psychedelic self-healing is that we have problems in life, right? We have, whatever, we have anxiety issues or depression issues, or, places we're hung up or stuck or that kind of thing, right? And then we have resource states and resources in general. And resources could be relationships and people we know. Resources could be skills we have, but resources often can just be mindsets and positive emotional states that help you to push through the problem or heal the problem or resolve the problem or sort the problem out in some way. Psychedelics provide us with a lot of resource states. And so whether those resource states come up in a therapeutic session by yourself with a therapist, or whether they come at a concert, as they did in my case, a resource state is a resource state. And once you have it and you know that you're capable of feeling that good or that clear or that focused or whatever it is that came up for you, you can then take that resource state and essentially, and I'll do another video about this in more depth, apply that back to your problems in life and really connect the two at a deep level and kind of heal the problem. That's the work that I do. That's the heart and soul of the work that I do with people. And I love it. And it's unique. It's something that you don't see spoken about in any of this other psychedelic therapy circles. So this is really something I'm pioneering out and looking forward to sharing more with you guys about. But kind of digressing away from that, my intention has always been to teach people how to work this path, because healing comes up when it comes up. That's just the reality of the situation of being human. We're not cleanly organized into these little boxes. We shift through states all the time, every day. And so how do you work with healing? How do you work with those moments where a healing awareness arises or where a healing need arises, right? How do you work with yourself or others when you are, in a setting you're tripping, you're high, or someone you love and know is high and you're in a little bubble of a crew and someone has something comes up and needs support, right? How do you help them through that? That kind of a thing. So that's really always been my intention here with the channel. And I'll be showing and sharing more about how to do all that. So I do want to caveat a couple things here. So it sounds like in this video, what I'm saying is the line's all blurry and whatever, just go have a good time with psychedelics and take as much as you want. And there's a trend I'm seeing online that really concerns me. And that is especially young people, but even, older, new people who don't have the skill of how to work with psychedelics. And it is a skill. It's something you learn. It's like getting your sea legs. It's like learning to sail on a ship, right? There are certain things you need to do in order to keep the ship afloat and keep yourself from getting dizzy and seasick and overwhelmed and, tripped out, with the metaphor, right? There are a lot of people I see who don't have those skills, who don't have the proper understandings, who are then, because they see kind of this not misinformation, they see only the tip of the iceberg of this information of psychedelics are safe, which they are, but psychedelics also can be dangerous. That psychedelics are good for your brain, which they are, but used safely and properly in the right context, and that psychedelics are good for healing mental health, for depression, for anxiety, which they are. But again, that's in the context of psychedelic therapy. So all the studies that you're seeing about healing depression, for example, are therapy for weeks before a session, right? With like a focus on healing the trauma, really getting the person up to speed with whatever their issue is, unpacking it, getting their head in the right place therapeutically. Then doing the session, as far as I can tell, the way they're doing it, the psychedelic session itself is kind of open-ended. There's not a lot of guiding or directing or healing happening during the psychedelic session. It's just there as an exploration of the therapeutic issue. And then there's integration and more therapy after the session. So when you're seeing these, psychedelics heal depression, it's not like you just eat the psychedelic and it heals the depression. It's psychedelics plus therapy, focused in the right way, can have a huge impact on depression. Same thing with anxiety. The studies about anxiety, as far as I know, in terms of psychedelics, are, and by psychedelics, I mean psilocybin, LSD, this kind of a thing in this case. When it comes to anxiety, most of that was for a specific type of anxiety, which is end of life anxiety. So that's for people who have a terminal illness. They know they're going to pass away soon. They are dealing with their own grief, their own fear around that, their own uncertainty, their own concern about their family and whatever they're leaving behind. In that kind of a situation where I'm sure they're getting therapy for this anxiety as well. And then they take the psilocybin or the LSD, they self-reflect, and then there's report and check-in and integration, more therapy afterwards. Same deal. It's effective. But that is a different thing than what's happening a lot, which is where we have young people who are just seeing this information. Oh, it's good for you. Oh, it's good for your brain. Oh, it helps with mental illness. And they're over consuming psychedelics. And they don't know how to navigate it. They don't know how to surrender to the experience. They don't even know what surrender to the experience means exactly. There's a specific meaning that means. They don't know that that you want to kind of stagger your way up to a higher dose and learn how to feel comfortable and how to work with the experience over time, right? And so you get a lot of these reports. I'm seeing a lot of it, and it's really, really concerning, where people are taking 500 micrograms of LSD their first time, or an eighth of mushrooms their first time, and that's way too much. And then they're having, and then they've never done any mental health work, and then they're shocked and caught off guard when what comes up is grief and overwhelm and terror and sadness and confusion and and hopelessness and all this stuff coming up that's been kind of repressed and held in, and either they didn't even know they were carrying, and they don't have the tools to process the grief or the emotions, and all of a sudden it's all coming up, and they don't know how to deal with the overwhelm of the psychedelic and self-regulate, and lo and behold, they have a bad experience. And so I'm sharing all of this as a message of honesty, first of all, that therapeutic versus recreational, it's not that cut and dry. It just isn't. It's blurry. And because of that, that's more reason to know what you're doing. That's more reason to gain skills with psychedelics. That's more reason to know the basic harm reduction best practices. It's more reason to stagger your way into higher doses and baby step your way and understand you're going to have really powerful, profound, positive, good experiences, even on moderate to low doses. And that really what's going to make you happier, mentally healthier, is your capacity to get more present to your own experience, to get more aware and more attuned. It's not about taking more and amping up your experience to 100 in order to feel something, in order to have a good time. That's a very misguided approach. And I've seen a lot of people do it. And honestly, the people that I've seen kind of go that way do end up kind of crashing and burning and kind of really I've seen some really sad, upsetting scenarios over and over and over. And it's usually that person. It's usually that person that really wants to push the limit, push the cutting edge. I've been there. I've done it myself, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good, and it took me a long time to put myself back together. Fortunately, I was able to. But I didn't have the money for therapy, and I had to do it myself, and it took a long time. And so, okay, so just summing up, because I kind of went off on a rant here, as I'm prone to do. Point number one, the line's blurry. Point number two, know what the hell you're doing, please, people. Don't just, because I'm saying the line is blurry, use that as permission and an excuse to just overconsume and to not know what you're doing and not gain the skill and to just throw yourself in the deep end of it, because it can be dangerous. You don't know how your brain's going to react to it. You don't know what material is going to arise out of you. And there are ways to navigate that kind of chaos and ride those waves and surf that in a way that's really going to lead you in the right place and optimize your experience. But if you don't know how to do that, it's just going to end up, kind of just tossing you around in the worst way. So anyways, big love to all. I thought this would be an interesting conversation to kind of counterpoint some of the other stuff. I will be kind of continuing to soft release more content about the self-regulation course. So you'll see more videos about that. In case you didn't know or you haven't heard yet, I released my first mini course. It is a course on how to feel better in your own skin, how to gain tools for self-regulation so that you can neutralize triggers, you can let go of PTSD, you can let go of anxiety, you can let go of depression, these kinds of things, and really clarifying that that's a different skill set from the skill set of taking psychedelics, and that psychedelics in and of themselves are not really that great for self-regulation. So anyways, if you're interested in that course, the link will be down below. I strongly encourage you to pick up these tools. They are life tools for everybody. They're things we should all know that very few of us do. So anyways, if you want to feel better, that's where you want to look. And I just want to offer these messages out there to you today for your own safety, for your own well-being, and for just transparency and honesty and furthering the conversation here about the right, skillful use of psychedelics, if you will. And yeah, that's it. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the near future. All the best.